Okay, good morning. Welcome to the session Decarb City Pipes 2050, Transition Roadmaps to Energy Efficient, Zero Carbon, Urban Heating and Cooling. My name is Michele Sansoni. I'm a project manager in the Life, Energy and Climate Unit of CINEA, which I guess you know, it's the newly established European Climate Infrastructure and Environment Executive Agency of the European Commission. So I guess you also know that CINEA manages the LIFE program among the other programs, EU programs managed. And the new LIFE program will feature a sub-program which is called the Clean Energy Transition Sub-Program, which will continue to support the market uptake activities, which were funded under the energy efficiency call of Horizon 2020. And for instance, the Decarb City Pipes 2050 project was funded under Horizon 2020 energy efficiency. So we will continue under a clean energy transition in life, supporting this kind of activities. So if you have any questions about the upcoming live program, I encourage you to follow the virtual fair this afternoon, or in particular, the info session at 2:30 p.m. But let's go back to the session and the Decarb City Pipes 2050 project. So we will dedicate now 30 minutes to the presentation, and then you will have time to ask questions to the speaker. You can do so by taking the floor, basically, and asking your question, or writing in the chat box. But now I'm really delighted to have with us today Judith Neyer, a senior expert at Urban Innovation Vienna and project coordinator of the Decarb City Pipes 2050 project. So Judith is a political scientist with extensive experience in climate and energy policy making in Austria and beyond. And before joining Urban Innovation Vienna, Judith worked as a climate and energy advisor to the Green Party in the Austrian Parliament for 2 legislatures. So without further ado, Judith, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Michele, for the kind introduction, and welcome to everybody. I'm really looking forward to be able to show a little bit what we've been trying to do in our project Decarb City Pipes. You can all hear me fine, I guess. If not, please let me know. If I'm not hearing anything, I assume this is all working. So, Decarb City Pipes, what we're trying to do in this project is to showcase how we can phase out fossil fuels from urban heating and cooling. This is what we've set our mind on, and this is what we're trying to do. This is really the nutshell version. Before I talk about the project, a few words about us as in Urban Innovation Vienna, which is the organization I am from. So we're the energy agency and the competence center for the city of Vienna on anything that's energy and climate. Hang on, I just need to move this away because this is in my screen. There we are. So we develop innovative strategies for all of the future issues that are sort of that are ahead of cities, together with the stakeholders in the economic world, in the research area, and obviously all of the city actors. We're working closely with international partners and always striving to learn and share experience from other cities, which is also what we're doing in Decarb City Pipes, obviously. So about today, what I try to do today is to show you a little bit, talk about why Decarb City Pipes. I'll talk a little bit about the project rationale and its goals. I'll keep this short because I think we're all pretty much of one mind on the issue of climate emergency. So, so we all know what we're trying to do. I'll talk about who we are, the cities and the consortium, also the people behind the project, how we work, a little bit about our methods and our approach. And then the most important part of this presentation, I think, will be what we've been up to so far, the activities and results. And I've been asked by Michele to really try to be as concrete as possible, which I will try. But I also say, as a disclaimer, concrete is digital, or has been digital this past year. So it's still concrete, but it's you'll see. when we get to it. And then a few words about where next, plans and progress. And then of course there'll be time for questions. So a few hard facts about the project. As Michele said, it's funded under the Horizon program. We submitted under the Energy Call 2019 in July 2020. So it doesn't feel that long. It feels like we only just started, but if this is true, it must have been almost a year. We have a budget of just short of 2 million euro between 11 partners. So why Decarb City Pipes? Basically, our assumption is, the problem from which we started from for this project is that we said it's complicated, it's urgent, and we're not prepared. So what I said about being of one mind, I think everyone participating in this conference would agree with me that climate urgency requires more stringent and particularly faster action. And also, and this has been mentioned during the opening panel of yesterday's conference, that urban heating and cooling, cities are key, but in cities, urban heating and cooling is key to be able to do this. So this is urgency. Also, we're talking in the project Decap City Pipes, we're talking about grid infrastructure. So, and those are always connected to really long life cycles. So we're talking about applying a pipe in the ground that'll be in the ground for 30, 40 years. So if we want to address this project and backcast the challenge, we need to start planning and acting now. So there's this, and then the complicated aspect. So there's many uncertainties connected to decarbonizing heating and cooling infrastructure, and those could be technical solutions, obviously legal issues, process related, because this is a task that I don't think anyone that we know of who's alive today has ever tried to address a transition as big and as encompassing as the climate transition. So there's process related questions, we're trying new things, these are not standard solutions. And there's obviously many social questions connected to the transformation of heating and cooling in cities. So we need a high level of skills to be able to face that challenge and to find the right and good solutions. We need a lot more knowledge and planning capacity in cities. And our diagnosis, if you will, is that we're not prepared. Cities are ill-equipped at the moment for this challenge to be able to succeed. And this is where Decarb City Pipes comes in. So our not so modest goal, if you will, is to do just that. Equip cities with the know-how, with the capacity as far as we can, and with the mandate also, again, as far as we can, to act on this challenge and to act wisely. So we're trying to build up planning and implementation capacity in different city administrations. We're trying to identify decarbonization options for different urban typologies. And we're also being sort of very heads-on to address the hot potato. I don't know if this translates into English. Maybe it's a German-English thing, but the issue of phasing out natural gas in the building sector, the elephant in the room, really, when we talk about heat and decarbonization. So we're trying, with this also means that we need to understand the potential, but I think more importantly, even the limitations of green gas for urban heating and cooling. So we're trying to learn about this. And then we're trying to break the challenge down into manageable, concrete steps for cities to be able to plan and take. So once we've worked through this, we're trying to obviously showcase how local authorities can succeed in this challenge and spread the word. This is part of trying to spread the word, what I'm doing right here. And by this, we're hoping to make a valuable contribution to European climate action. So who are we? I'll start with the cities in the consortium. As you can see from the graph here, we have 7 cities in the consortium. So it's Bilbao from Spain, Bratislava, Slovakia, Dublin from Ireland. We've heard of Dublin in the last session, if you also joined. Munich, Germany, Rotterdam in the Netherlands, Vienna, obviously, and Winterthur are only Swiss and non-EU partner in this project. You can see that we have sort of different sizes involved in this project, from very small Winterthur to quite sizable Vienna and Munich, and some middling range cities. We've got some capitals, we've got some non-capitals. Most of our cities are Covenant of Mayor members. All of our cities, and this is important for us when we selected them, have ambitious zero-emission targets ranging from 2035 to 2050 and in between for Vienna. All of the cities have a gas grid. So this is also obviously important because this is our challenge in the project, trying to get off gas for heating and cooling. And most of our cities have a district heating grid as well, but not all of them. So that's Bilbao and Dublin, who's setting up a district heating and cooling grid at the moment, and Bilbao who's in the process of deciding what sort of technical solution to bet on. So apart from the cities, we have other partners in the consortium that is, I already spoke about Urban Innovation Vienna with the project coordinator. We have two scientific partners at the University of Utrecht and its Department for Human Geography and Spatial Planning. And we've got the University of Halmstad in Sweden with its Department for Construction and Energy Engineering on board. And then we've also got energy cities who will be familiar to most of you, I'm sure, as our network to help with, obviously with dissemination, but who's also in charge of the capacity building and learning modules that are part of this project and that I'll speak about in a minute. So how do we work? A little bit about our sort of philosophy behind this project. So we're trying to do two things: cities learning from cities, guided by scientific partners, and trying to thereby reinforce the debate and the conversation really in each city between the different city stakeholders is sort of the overall idea. We have selected 7 cities expressly with the sort of express intention to represent different stages of development when it comes to the decarbonization challenge. So we have some front runners with Rotterdam, I'm sure, certainly when it comes to target setting. The Netherlands have very, very ambitious decarbonization targets and some really innovative approaches that we're trying to bring into the consortium by having selected Rotterdam as a partner. And we've got also cities that are only just starting onto the journey of decarbonizing their city, in particular heating and cooling, and that is Bratislava, probably in our consortium, who has joined as a seed partner, if you will, to learn from the others that are already a bit further on the way. So we also selected 7 cities with different socio-technical characteristics of different kind of heating systems, different cultures, different urban sort of environments. And the idea behind this was to have enough commonalities in the consortium so that cities can learn from each other and have similar problems and questions. But we also wanted the cities to be different enough so that we have many cities within Europe that can find something that is like in their own city and that they can learn from. So that was a sort of balance that we tried to strike, and I think we succeeded in doing this. Another important principle of our work really is to work really city-driven. That's something sort of we're trying. Our approach is always we're trying to support what's happening in each city. Yeah, so cities have set up local working groups in which they're trying to drive the city planning agenda on heating and cooling decarbonization. And this is the essential engagement format in this project. I'll speak about this in more detail too. And then there's, on the international level, there's peer-to-peer learning between the different cities and also between the local utilities and the district this distribution system operators that we have brought on board with this project. Our two scientific partners guide us on two aspects of the transition journey. One is at Halmstad University is on board for the techno-economic questions, if you will. So what are the solutions? What are business models that could work? And University of Utrecht is supporting us on more on the process related, on the governance framework and more sort of change management questions that we bring up during the work. And I already spoke about energy cities. We also have a really distinguished advisory board to challenge us, and strategically mostly, and also to guide the city's work and root it a little bit into the real world of energy markets and policy making. So one more, I think what's also important to understand about this project is we're trying to do both things. We're trying to think both big and small. This is a sort of a variation of the famous word thinking fast and slow. I hope this is not, I hope this is still okay to copy it and change this around. So thinking big and small, we're both looking at the big trends that are sort of present in the heating and cooling world at the moment, globally and at the EU level, but also at the really sort of specific local circumstances in each city and region. I'm not going to go through all of those because I think there's too much to take in, but so obviously a mega trend is the decreasing demand for heat in the long term because of changing climate, and an increasing demand for cooling, obviously. And one mega trend at the moment is also a hype, even if you will, it's a question of green gas. How much will be available sustainably? For which sectors will it be available? Those kinds of questions that every European city will face, really, no matter where it's located. And then we have questions that are very specific to the partners in the project. So what is the actual existing infrastructure in the ground? What are the heat densities in the different areas of the city? What are the local heat potentials, and sort of what is the situation in the different stakeholders? How far are they already willing to take on this challenge, or how much sort of how much galvanizing still needs to be done for everybody to be on board? So a little more detail on the questions that we're trying to tackle. So we're looking at the technical and economic solutions for different urban areas. So one would be, obviously one question is where to extend or establish new district heating and cooling grids, and where not. We're trying to find a common, not a common approach, but we're trying to sort of share knowledge about how best to plan this. What role, if any, I already mentioned this, for green gas in the cities. How can we unbundle gas and district heating grids where there's a parallel infrastructure that will definitely become too costly at a point soon, and obviously not sustainable in the long term. How to decarbonize existing district heating and cooling grids is obviously one important question for every city that already has one that's not fully renewable, which I think is the case for 98% of all district heating present in Europe. And then questions related to the procedures and instruments that we're tackling is sort of how to set up good database heating and cooling planning. What are the regulatory or financial instruments available in a city, a region, or a member state? How to transform institutions that so far have not been on the climate train. How to overcome vested interests, how to team up with new market participants, and obviously also how to get citizens on board. Now this slide is, I promise it's the last slide on how we work. So it's basically all connected, and I'm not going to go over all of this because I realize this is too much to take in terms of concept. But one thing I want to sort of stress is if you just look at the three icons on the slide, the way we're trying to keep everybody orientated in the project is to say we're working in 3 steps. At the end of the project, which is also part of the title of the project, so transition roadmaps. At the end of the project, we want a transition roadmap for each city that details specifically how do we get from where we are now to a zero carbon energy efficient urban heating and cooling system. Yeah, and who does what by when in order to be able to get there. But to be, it's sort of, we're trying to get there by intermediate steps. And the first is, and this is what we've achieved now at this point in the project, almost a year after we started. So we created a heating and cooling outlook in each city. So each city with the local important actors sat together and discussed and said, we want a vision, or we need a vision of where we're actually headed. And that is, so we're trying, vision is composed of a quantitative outlook. So when is our decarbonization date, and what are the sources and the quantities that we're going to, what's the heat demand and the supply quantities that we're going to use to be able to get there. And this is meant as a common vision to set out the journey and say, this is where we're aiming to go. And we have agreement on this with all the actors that are important. And then the next step, intermediate step, would be a heating and cooling plan. And that is bringing the quantitative level down onto the spatial level and trying to say on the map, well, if this is our journey and this is our vision, where we need to get, this is how we map it out on the city. These are the areas that we already know which solutions to use. And maybe this is an area where we don't really know, but we'll just sort of put a pin in this. And this is how we spatially sort of develop all of the solutions that we need. And then the transition roadmap brings in the whole process and management aspects of it to make sure that the plan is implemented. I'll jump over this because I think it would be more interesting to take a little bit more time with what we've been up to so far. So I'll give you a break from me talking at this point and show you a short video clip to give you a sense of what we've been up to so far, just by seeing it yourselves, and also see a whole team, and then I explain what I'm trying to show with this later. And I think this
Welcome everybody to the kickoff meeting for Decarb City Pipes. Can you all hear me? We'll watch the little video clip.
Hello from Dublin. Here, this is the Kadima team. Hi, I'm Christophe.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Julien Joubert.
Hi, I'm Cleo Paul. Hi, I'm Annelieke Vis. My name is Astrid Monsen.
That's the view from a house over the Lake of Zurich.
I'm Orf.
My name is Maya.
Hi, my name is Michael.
Hi, I'm Victoria Plastia.
Hi, I'm Kevin Higgins.
My name is Susanna Erka. As you can see, it says new project. Boom, 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 boom. And this is what this is all about. And I'm really looking forward to starting this new project tomorrow morning with all of you. Over to you, Astrid.
Heat vision of the city of Rotterdam. In Rotterdam, we love to say make it happen. So that's what we're trying to do.
So next in the agenda.
Sorry, my daughter just entered the room.
Hi, Jochen. Cheers, cheers. Getting to know the cities.
My name is Jordan Guardo. I'm an advisor at the mayor's office here in the city of Bilbao.
Hello from Bratislava. I'm going to show you the energy systems analyst with Codema.
Munich without Oktoberfest dieses Jahr.
Out Vienna, let's wrap it up in 3 minutes. Let's decarbonize our heating system, of course.
Some slides about Winterthur.
And Svea, I think you're about in this direction. 900 kilometers.
Thank you very much. Come back tonight at 7. Bring a cold beer or whatever makes you happy.
So how was it in the pub?
Well, I loved it. Strangely real. Urban, welcome back. You found your way back.
Well, I was kind of somewhere else.
I mean, I'm so relieved that we haven't actually lost anyone in the internet. I will never again submit you to a 3A digital meeting.
So it's the third day of the consortium project meeting. Just want to welcome newcomers because we invited a number of external cities.
Okay, I'll kick off on hydrogen and net zero emissions.
We were wondering if it would be interesting to hear from the cities represented. Is there already a strategy how to deal with hydrogen, green gas?
Yeah, we have 4 examples of geothermal energy out of our consortium today, and it's actually a all-female panel.
I'm really looking forward to this, and yeah, it'll be great for the next 3 years.
Okay, I think I need to share my slides. Then I just get a confirmation that he's seen them. Can you, Michaela, can you just confirm?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can
okay.
go. You can
Great.
go on, Judith. And
I can go
10
on.
minutes.
Wonderful.
10 minutes more or less.
Yeah, I know. I have some. What my watch here. I'll keep the 10 minutes. So, but I can't for some reason. Yeah, there we are. So why? So I hope that this little sort of medley of our meetings. It was mostly our kickoff meeting, but also our first sort of modules of peer-to-peer learning that we did in the meantime. I wanted to give you an idea of obviously who are the other people in the project, but also of how we work as sort of the atmosphere, the sharing of knowledge, and the sort of also the trying to the team that we've already built. And this is what I wanted to speak about as a sort of one of the learning experience that we already have made so far in the project is, I called this slide "Never Waste a Good Crisis," because I don't know, probably many of you have faced the same challenge, but we are a project that has kicked off and worked entirely digitally, entirely online. And that obviously was not the plan when we planned the project, but we try to say this is, I mean, our project is about learning new things that have not been tried before. So we just have to implement it and start with it ourselves in the same way and just move everything online and find new solutions. So I just wanted to share with you lessons that we learned in it is that diligent preparation for anything that's happening online, and a lot of this will be here to stay, I'm sure, is really key. And we invested a lot of time in team building, or a lot of effort in team building, more than we would have probably had we just met in a city, to be able to really then sort of also have a team to work together. And I think this really paid off, and I'm hoping that was visible in the short video. So not all of this was bad, to be honest, because we also, the pandemic also forced us to adjust our formats, which we did, and just met more often, honestly, because it's easier to do online. Originally, the plan was to meet in the consortium twice a year in different cities. Now we just had a more nimble sort of agile format by we just meet every month for a peer-to-peer learning session, which allows us to cover a lot more issues and to just move quicker. So we're trying to just keeping the conversation going instead of just meeting twice yearly. And I think that's certainly a benefit, and that we're trying to keep up. So obviously our digital learning curve was massive. And then these things will certainly be here to stay. The other thing that happened, which I put on the good crisis sort of slide, is that the dynamic in the whole climate debate, thankfully, kept up or increased with the pandemic, thanks to obviously the European Commission also really sort of setting the course to say carbon-free construction will be sort of green and climate friendly. So we're trying to adjust our project schedule also to make the most of all of the things that are happening at the EU level at the moment, including all the sort of governance framework that's being shaped by the Fit for 55 package. And also many cities have started to increase their ambition and targets, and timelines are getting ever more ambitious, probably in many of your cities as well. And I would say that has for our project been both good and bad. I mean, mostly good, honestly, because more climate ambition and sort of more action is what we all want. But sometimes this has sort of increased the ambition to a point where staff in the cities is often overwhelmed with just managing to then make the plans. So I don't know, our city partner Munich wants to decarbonize by 35 the whole city entirely. So that's a tough call. They're on it, but it is really hard to manage to do this well. And then not all cities have managed during the pandemic to stay on the climate course. I would also be honest enough to say that. I mean, some have just been so overwhelmed with just managing the pandemic that other things have paused for a while. So that was one challenge that we tried to address as well. So what's been happening locally? Just two more I picked two issues that I wanted to explain to you that we've been doing in each city. So one is obviously that every city set up local working groups to do the planning. And that sounds simple and a bit banal, but that is actually, I think, the heart of the good work. Yeah. So finding all of the actors that you need on board in all of the city departments, in the utilities or other city actors that are going to work on those transition roadmaps and putting them in one working group that has a structure, has a governance and management structure, and will meet and has the same vision to work on these roadmaps. I think that is an important basis for all that we're trying to do. So that's happened in all cities. So all cities have functioning set up working groups that are meeting on a regular basis. And they have all developed, and I'll speak to that in the next slide, a heating and cooling outlook, which I already mentioned in the beginning, setting up the vision to work towards and finding agreement among all actors that this is where we want to go. So we've received some support by our project partners. The working groups have been supported by the non-city partners, namely, as an example, our scientific partner Halmstad provided input on the different possibilities and combinations for cities to explore with respect to technical and economic strengths and weaknesses of the different low carbon heating and cooling choices that are available for the dense urban areas that we're dealing with. So we as Urban Innovation Vienna have supported the cities in setting up those working groups and make sure that they're functioning, that they're the groups are lasting and robust so that they can deliver what we promised to do in this project. We also had our advisory board member, Kees van der Leyen, input from Guidehouse input on the draft outlooks that the cities have prepared. So we received some feedback from our competent members of the advisory board. So this is again the heating and cooling outlooks that have been developed by each city. So it's a plausible, desirable heating and cooling vision, including a CO2 reduction pathways. For some cities also underlying renovation rates, heating system exchange scenarios, and obviously the most important thing, agreement among the key actors that this is where they want to go. I'm zooming in, and then I'm almost through. I'm zooming in on two cities, Dublin, again, just to go through the order of progress. So Dublin created a local working group, obviously highlighting the local challenges to be addressed in the project, developed a heating and cooling outlook within the local working group, participated in knowledge sharing sessions with bringing in other local stakeholders and not just project team members into this webinars that we organized. And then also bilaterally, and this is something that we're really hoping that will be done much more frequently now, also that we can travel again, bringing in consortium members that they felt could speak with local authority staff on issues that are particularly important to them and that they can learn from. And the other zoom I'm going to put is on Vienna's heating and cooling outlook, just because I've spoken so much about this vision as a starting point. This is how it can look. I mean, each city has a different, but this is our one slide trying to capture the main essence of it. So you can see that we've showed agreement that's been reached on where we want to be, a net zero target of 2040. You can see that we expect heat demand to increase slightly. And you can see how sort of we're planning to phase out natural gas and phase in renewable heating sources. And you can also see the curve of our CO2 reduction, CO2 pathway, and the way it's sort of curved. So those are all obviously behind every color on this slide and behind every sort of line, massive discussions within a city to broker an agreement on, and that's been achieved for now. The sort of small challenge that's remaining is how do we make this happen? But this is our starting point. And then last input on what's been happening so far. This is we had a peer-to-peer learning session on strategies for cities around green gas and hydrogen, for which we asked our advisory board member Lisa Fischer from the think tank E3G to give us some strategic questions that we can ask ourselves in order to make this sort of this important decision early on in the project. We had a capacity building session that you've also seen a sort of glimpse from in the short video on the different geothermal approaches in 4 cities that are participating, which was really interesting, particularly for the utilities who are participating in the project. Last slide, where are we off to next? Basically, we're moving from the planning activities that have been sort of quantitative and sort of vision building so far to the spatial level. We're trying to go into the sort of concrete level now and mapping out the solutions in each city, and then from there start looking at the process and change management questions to make this all happen. Voila. And then, of course, also what's next is that we're finally going to meet in person, to which we're all really looking forward to. So we'll have our first real live meeting in Rotterdam at the end of September, and we're preparing this at the moment. So sorry, I've gone a little bit too long, but I'm hoping that the 2 minutes are okay. Michele, I will take your questions now if you have any.
Yes, thank you very much, Judith. And yes, open for any questions from the audience. Sorry. So while waiting for the questions, I can ask you something. So in case other cities are interested in your activities, how should they get in contact with the project, basically? What's in it for them?
Oh yeah, a lot will be in it. I mean, a lot of it is still developing. I think, as I pointed out, we've been sort of preparing the ground. There's a website, obviously, that you can go to, and that's also part of my presentation, where you'll find all of the resources eventually. At the moment, I think, to be honest, the best is just to contact me or any of the other team members and to just drop us a line and say, so we're interested in learning, because the peer-to-peer sessions and the modules, the learning modules that are managed, that we're doing monthly online, those are in principle open to anyone who's interested. Yeah, but we're not, it's not a public webinar, but if you drop us a line and say, some of the questions that you mentioned seem interesting, can you give us a draft work plan of what you're going to cover in the next month? I'd be more than happy to share that, and you would get an invitation to participate in those meetings, for instance. And then obviously I'm also, I think what we're also able to do is now to broker bilateral sort of contacts to something that's really specific to a certain city. Say if you heard Dublin is building a new district heating and cooling grid, and in your city, that's a question that you're sort of pondering, then yeah, drop us a line and I'll try to get you in touch with somebody who's facing a similar challenge. And then eventually, of course, as we progress, there'll be sort of customized, there'll be sort of resources and publications and guidebooks on what we've been doing and what we've learned, obviously, like in these projects that is common in these projects.
Yeah, that's interesting, because one of the aim of your project is also to achieve great replication to other cities. I mean, you're 7 cities, but you want to replicate in more than 80, if I remember correctly.
Actually, more than 500. We're trying to reach. We're trying to reach more than 500 cities and 50. I think we're trying to motivate 50 plus cities to follow the same process that we're trying out for you now. Yeah, so replication is an important part of our project, but it is just the fact that, I mean, we've been working for a year, but the first couple of months were in the middle of the pandemic, just shifting everything to digital. So but starting now, we'll start to produce the sort of the guidance for other cities that that will be available, and then yes, we also have sister cities on board in our consortium. So each city has another city in its own country with a sort of a similar planning culture as a sparring partner. So the idea is that those partners can share experience more sort of on a different communication level, if you will. And those are also part of the replication, of course.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Judith? You can also write in the chat box. So it seems there are no questions. So
this could either mean that I was very clear, which I'm afraid might not be the case, or it could mean that I was just all too overwhelming, in which case do follow up.
Well, in any case, we almost reached the end of the session. So I think we can close. And I think that was very interesting. It was also interesting because I think you shared with the participants a flavor on how it is to develop and implement a project during a pandemic, because that's also something which sometimes could be underestimated. You devised your project idea in a different situation, and now you have to cope with of course, a lot of issues, but it's good that you're also learning by doing on this aspect. So before closing, I thank you very much again, Judith. Thank you very much, and thank you to all the participants. And so I basically wish you an interesting continuation of the event, which is approaching its final steps. So next round of sessions will start at 11, and this will be the last parallel sessions. And then we will have, let me double check in the agenda. Yes, then you will, there will be a lunch break, and we will start again at 2 with the closing remarks and the opening of the marketplace. And please, if you're interested, after the marketplace, or in parallel with the marketplace, there is an info session of the Life Clean Energy Transition Program. So with this, I wish you a very good continuation of the event, and thank you very much again. Goodbye.
Thanks, bye.